Well said. And he's right. The answer is not in Washington. The answer is in you. I don't recall Jesus praying, "Our Father who art in Washington, D.C." So it's up to you and me, folks. So let me remind you again, you've been given the phone number for the Capitol switchboard, also for your congressional offices. And the Capitol switchboard is open. Some have tried and haven't been able to get through, and it's because they're getting swamped with calls. But please continue to call, make your voice be heard. And now live from the Values Voters Summit comes a speaker who served his country with distinction during his 22-year career in the U.S. Army, including services in Operation Desert Storm and Operation Iraqi Freedom. In November of 2010, he was elected to the United States Congress, representing the state of Florida's 22nd District. In January of 2013, he joined PJ Media as Director of Next Generation Programming, where he leads Next Generation TV, examining the issues of the day through the lens of the next generation and encouraging all Americans to stand up for our nation's collective future. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome to the podium Lieutenant Colonel and Representative Allen West. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, huzzah. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with you. And this is one of the toughest assignments that anyone could ever have, to come in and speak to you after you've gotten your bellies full from lunch. So we will do the best. And I want to thank Family Research Council for allowing me to be here today, my dear friend Tony Perkins, and also one of my true mentors, Lieutenant General Jerry Boykin, who, before I stepped out here, gave me one specific order. He said, "Don't mess this up." I want to read to you from what I think is really about the fundamental values of this country, from the Bible. And in Genesis chapter 47, and pay attention to these words, because I think it talks about where we are in the United States of America today. Genesis 47, verse 20. So Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh, for every Egyptian sold his field, because the famine was severe upon them. Thus the land became Pharaoh's. As for the people, he removed them to the cities, from one end of Egypt's border to the other. Only the land of the priests he did not buy, for the priests had an allotment from Pharaoh, and they lived off the allotment which Pharaoh gave them. Therefore, they did not sell their land. Then Joseph said to the people, "Behold, I have today bought you and your land for the Pharaoh. Now here is seed for you, and you may sow the land. At the harvest you shall give a fifth to Pharaoh, and 4/5 shall be your own for seed of the field, for your food and for those of your households, and as food for your little ones." So the people said, "You have saved our lives. Let us find favor in the sight of my Lord," with the little l, "and we will be Pharaoh's slaves." I want to talk to you very briefly about the famine in America and why values still do matter. It was a great quote from General George Washington that I want to share. "We are either a united people or we are not. If the former, let us in all matters of general concern act as a nation which has a national objects to promote and a national character to support. If we are not, let us no longer act a farce by pretending to it." 30 November 1785. See, there are some people, and I just had an interview with a young lady from the Hill, and she asked me, "Is social conservatism, are these people still relevant?" Of course you are, because you believe in a national character. You believe that there are national objects that we must promote, that we must defend, that we must stand up for. And if we do not believe in that national character, then we don't believe in the exceptionalism of America. then that bright light that is America, that beacon of liberty and freedom and democracy that has drawn so many people to this great country, it will burn a little less bright. And then the next thing you know, it won't burn at all. And when I think about our national character, when I think about our values, where did they first come from? What makes America unique? What makes America different? I go to these simple words from Thomas Jefferson's. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, of which being life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. What do we mean by life? What do we mean by life today? Here in the United States of America, if we don't understand that our children are sacred, that unborn, that we must stand up for their rights, that's part of who we are. That's part of our values. If we forget that, then it will be just the same as Alexis de Tocqueville said in the book Democracy in America. He said, America is great because America is good. America will cease to be great when America ceases to be good. You know, I thought about President Obama coming out for the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington and standing there and speaking about, Dr. King and what he represented. And I grew up in that neighborhood that Dr. King was brought up in. And I thought about one simple thing. Since 1972, 13 million black babies will never get to know Dr. King's dream. That was not mentioned. And when I think about the left, when I think about how they stand so much for choice, the choice to kill innocent babies, but yet they don't believe in the choice for us to educate those children later in life. No one talked about the fact that it was President Obama that took away that school voucher program for the children right here in Washington, D.C. See, when you talk about life, you're talking about our future generations. You're talking about our next generations. You're talking about passing on that which is part of our DNA, that sense of liberty and freedom, to those who have a heartbeat so that they can enjoy those blessings, so that they can one day sit here at this great and beautiful conference and summit. But if we continue down this path to deny that life, we will cease to be the great nation. We will cease to be that beacon. But it's not just about the life. It is also about the families that surround that life, that helps that life to grow and nurture. Look at what is happening all across our country. Look at what is happening in my own black community. The strength of the black community once upon a time was the family. And now today, those young black children that are born, only 28% of them have mothers and fathers in the home. And really, when you look all across all demographics, we're talking about 50%. Almost half of our children have mothers and fathers in the home. Look at our inner cities and what is happening there. How can we own true to the promise of America? There is nothing wrong with a sense of family. That is part of life. And we must stand for that. We must not allow it to be redefined. We must say, it is not about us hating other people because we believe in one man and one woman. If you ever get a chance to go to Marietta National Cemetery, there in Marietta, Georgia, go visit the gravesite of my mother and father. You will only find one gravesite because as they were in life, so are they in death. One man, one woman, my mother and my father. And that's what we must stand for. But in life, in family, but also faith, America has a Judeo-Christian faith heritage. And when I hear people say that separation of church and state, it concerns me. Because we cannot allow our faith heritage to be separated from who we are. Because as you saw here in this passage out of Genesis, when all of a sudden Pharaoh and Joseph, they were the ones being called Lord, and the people bowed down before them because they had been bought and they gave themselves up as being slaves. See, the interesting thing about Jefferson's words, our inalienable rights come from a creator. They come from God with the big G, not government with the little g. If we believe that those rights come from government with a little g, then man can take them away. And think about just last year at the Democrat National Convention when they had to vote to put God back into their platform. Those are not the values of the United States of America. Those are not the values of a great nation. But when you think about liberty, liberty means the success of the individual's empowerment, not the collective enslavement, as we saw in this passage. There's an interesting question going on out there in the United States of America. Do we believe in the equality of opportunity, or do we believe in the equality of outcomes? One will promote the individual. The other will promote the collective. That's part of our values. That's part of who we are. And if we get away from it, if we get away from these fundamental words of Jefferson, then we are less of a country than what we're supposed to be. And the last part is the pursuit of happiness. The difference is Jefferson did not say the guarantee of happiness. What is the pursuit of happiness? The pursuit of happiness means this. It means hard work. It means personal responsibility. It means entrepreneurship. It means ingenuity. It means investment. It means innovation that comes from each and every one of you. But if we don't have people that believe in the pursuit of happiness, if we have people that believe up here in Washington, D.C., that they can guarantee your happiness because you're part of a collective, if we have people up here in Washington, D.C. that decide the outcomes for your life, if we have people up here in Washington, D.C. that does not believe in the indomitable American spirit, then we don't have the values that our founding fathers established for us. And then there is no need for you to come up here to Washington, D.C. for a values voter summit, because we will have sacrificed those values. See, I want to read to you what it says in Psalm 11:3. If the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? You think about the foundations. You think about what is happening, as I said. I recently read a statistic that said the United States of America is number 3 in the world in murders. But if you take away 4 cities from the United States of America, we're 4th from the bottom for murders. If you take away Chicago, you take away Detroit, you take away New Orleans, you take away Washington, D.C., what are the values? What type of people are running those cities? That's what we have to start looking at. Ladies and gentlemen, when you look at why are we redefining marriage, why are we redefining families, when you look at the growth of secular humanism, I was over at the McPherson Square metro station just 2 days ago, and there was an advertisement that said, millions of Americans are happy without religion. That may be true, but millions of Americans would not enjoy the freedoms and liberties if it weren't for people that had religion. We are moving away from an opportunity society to a dependency society. You don't believe that? Look at all the street corners that accept EBT cards. Look at how many Americans are now in poverty. Look at the sad state of affairs where you had people that were on part-time, full-time employment. Now they're on part-time employment. We are forcing more people to be dependent upon the government. But yet, in an instance when the government should own up to its responsibilities, the government fails. What kind of nation do we live in? What kind of values do we have when the families of our fallen warriors are not granted their death gratuity benefits from this federal government? When you have people making excuses saying the lawyers misinterpreted something. It's all about your values. It's all about leadership. And I will say this right now. Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel, please resign. Thank you. There is hope for America. There is hope for America because, as it says in James chapter 1, verses 2 through 4, consider it all joy, my brethren, when you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance. And let endurance have its perfect result, so that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. I believe that there is a resurgence of values in America. I believe that there are more people that are praying for America. I believe that the American people are willing to stand in the gap so that once again we have a country, we have a nation that is lacking in nothing. But all it takes is to get leaders with courage, with conviction, with commitment, with the right character, leaders that understand our national character, leaders who are not afraid of the media when they come after you and attack you. That's what we need you to stand for. That's what we need you to encourage. That's what we need you to raise up from your ranks. The answers are not going to come from Washington, D.C. The answers are going to come from the spirit of America, which each and every one of you carry. In closing, I want to leave you with this thought from 1 Peter 2:9, because I think this is the message to us as Americans. This is the message that I want to leave with you at this Values Voters Summit. And it says, "But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for God's own possession, so that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who has called you out of the darkness into the marvelous light." If America surrenders her values, America goes back into the darkness, and future generations will be relegated to that darkness. Ronald Reagan talked about the shining city that sits upon a hill. Each and every one of you know where Ronald Reagan got that from. It was in Matthew chapter 6, where he talked about the salt of the earth, the light that shines, that cannot be hidden, cannot sit on a lampstand and be put out. We need each and every one of you to hold on to those values, to make sure that we take this United States of America into an even better and brighter future. We need you to understand that you must endeavor to make sure that we seek to restore that marvelous light that was talked about in 1 Peter 2:9. That marvelous light has been the means by which so many ships of distress have found safe harbor here in the United States of America. When America's light shines bright, America and the world does well. When America and all of you know our values and know our principles, then America will have that bright shining light. As you leave here from this Values Voters Summit, remember that little song that we used to sing in Sunday school down south? This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. God bless you all and thank you.